So we wanted to get things started off for our market update for Q3. So it's sad that you guys are here because of course you have to listen to me and Cameron for the next little bit. So people wanted to have it where me and Cameron were basically Gary Keller and Jay. So you can decide who's who. I know who Cameron wants to be, but we'll go from there.
I'm Jay all the way.
Yeah, right. I love it. Well, kind of going through, let's dive into some of the stats. We'll focus on some pages and go through it pretty quickly. Other ones, we will dive in a little deeper and go through kind of what we see, what we're seeing through the market, and everything there. So kind of just always that, right? This right here is something that you can access later. So when you go through the process of going to kwutah.com, you can find these, use them. They'll be good. There's something that you want to definitely have in your arsenal for while you're talking with more people. Okay, so kind of start off, Cameron. I know we were chatting about this one earlier. Agent count. What are your thoughts on kind of where we're at from the data we were reviewing on agents?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're trending a little bit lower, and it's kind of to be expected. A lot of people are making less money than they were before, so they've gotten out of the business, but I don't think new agents have slowed getting in the business.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I know we were chatting about that part. There are a lot of new agents that are getting in the business and they're hungry, and they're going to be, I think, in a lot of ways, the next rock star hitters in a handful of years. So you can kind of see this shows something similar. It's showing more of the years kind of that way. And that. So you can see that in Utah Association, we have lost less than nationwide, which is definitely an interesting kind of percentage to look at. Okay, so Cameron, on this one.
Yeah, side per agents, we're a little bit lower than the national average. We're 4.1 here in Utah, with the national being 5. But I actually did the math from later slides on the average purchase price and commission and everything, and we are about the same amount of money that we make in GCI. So we're less units, but more income that levels out. So about 50 grand is what we're at nation or Utah. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah,
But
it is.
still, I mean, we're feeling this. We went from 2021, where we're closing 5.7 to 4.1. That's a pretty big jump for the average agent.
Yeah, especially when you look at the 21-year average of UAR is 6.22.
Yeah.
So. And this right here shows a little bit about that with the volume side of it. So this right here, you can see from NAR, the total agent count, and kind of where we've been on that. So.
Yeah, and there's always a lag in this. You'll notice that we kept getting a higher agent count when the market value went down in 06. It looks like if we're kind of rebounding and going back up for 2024 now, we should have that average per agent jump a little bit before everyone realizes that there's money in real estate again.
Yeah, which is very much expressed in the Shift book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Explaining kind of that whole aspect of it does have that lag time for agent count, and it's a good thing, good time now to be buckling up and keep on pushing. So this is the total market value, or volume. Projected is still, on the aspect of looking like it's going to go up from 23, that we will be selling still more adjusted volume. Okay, this one has a lot, and I know we were looking at it quite a bit, Cameron. One of the facts that I was thinking was really interesting is if you look over the past few months of just comparing it, right? So last year, 3 months ago was so a year and 3 months ago was 45. Now we're at 47. We've gone up a little bit. Then it went 47. Now we're at 52 to 49 to 54 is where we ended up being at the moment for end of last month. So we are having it and seeing where days on market has been going up, but it's not that much higher than it was last year for seasonality and those aspects.
Yeah.
Okay, US existing home sales annual, and this is in the millions. So again, you can see how many houses are being sold. They're projecting that we do sell a little bit less in existing homes. And the trend is showing that is kind of the direction that we're going. This shows it over. You can see that the red line is every single time slightly smaller than last year's blue line. So we are trending very much in that direction. We'll have to see kind of what happens next. So this is new homes sold. What, I know we were chatting about this quite a bit, Cameron. What do you feel like this shows us?
Well, we were obviously under building for a long time and probably still even are, but we just didn't have new construction in the game. And then we started our way back up and dropped again. And I think interest rates scared some builders, builder confidence, which we'll look at and things like that, kind of made them go backwards a little bit. But it looks like we might be on the rise again here to get back above our average.
Which is good because you can see because 14 years of being below in the past bit, we have a huge deficit of houses, and we'll show that number quite a bit more in a little bit.
One of the other challenges on this is we had a lot of builders that left the market, never came back in after the housing crash in 08.
True.
So that, and we've got a lot of the boomers that have left the trades. So that's putting pressure on the price as well. And we've got a slide coming up on that.
Yep. So this shows the new homes again, now broken down. And you can see that this year we have actually done a little bit better overall than last year. So there are more new home sales, which is good. So keep a pulse on who your new agent, not new agents, but the builders are, so that you can make sure to be getting your clients there. Okay, annual home sales by year. This right here shows for Utah, and you can see that we are projecting that we're going to end up being slightly more since last year. If you look at year to date, kind of where it's all ending up, we'll see how the next 3 months pan out. But we're right now ahead of schedule, and so we should hopefully beat the amount of houses that are sold in 2023. Again, the monthly of it. Okay, Cameron, this one right here, I know we were diving in deep on this one. This is one of, I feel like, Gary Keller's favorite slides that he pulls up at family reunion. What does this slide mean to you?
Yeah, so obviously the yellow line is that long-term average of 4% appreciation every single year. You can see we were right on that for years and years. And then early 2000s, we started to get above that trend line. And then the Great Recession, we dropped below it. And Gary and Jay used to talk about, did we just start a new trend line? You can see from 2011 for the next few years, it looks like a 4% appreciation right there. And then we had this pop above that 4% trend line. So US wise, like who knows what we're going to do? Are we above it kind of like the 05, 06, 07 kind of a thing? Or are we just going to keep with a new trend now, a little bit above it? Be interesting to see.
So going back into even thinking about how do you use this slide in conversation with other people, Cameron, how would you translate this for a consumer on what's going on with the market?
Yeah, long term, real estate's always a good investment. 4% on average since the 1990s, and we are above that, so it's even higher than 4%. So if you're thinking long term, there's no safer bet than real estate. Even if you're looking at buying in a awful time, like you bought in 06, it comes back by 2014. So if you're living there long term, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, so this right here shows then the home prices by month. And you can see I like this one because it shows a little bit more of the seasonality aspect of kind of showing where prices have been at for the median sales price. Anything on this one that you wanted to mention, Cameron?
No.
Home payments. You can tell, of course, right at the end here, we have it where interest rates have been going up with the fact that home prices have gone up so much. And this is what's created, and we'll talk about a little bit more later about the affordability that has changed. Okay, Utah home prices. This is a fun one because it's just what we chatted about on the nation, right? With the 4% trend line. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see.
Throw that 4% out the window.
I know.
67% above the trend line. Like it's hard to think that we will stay flat or go down to reach that trend line. So I think we're high and we're staying high.
Yeah.
But you can see these last few years we're kind of stable here. 510 down to 484, back to 500. So I don't think we're going backwards. I also don't think we're jumping too high. It seems to be stable.
Yep. So Utah home prices by month shows the same thing. You can see kind of how things reacted with the interest rates. You can see that right when we hit kind of that increase is where it started dropping in price a little bit. And then right when we were in about the sixes, it's kind of where there was a little bit of fluctuation from people not knowing where things are at. And we've stayed pretty flat since then.
Well, and this is interesting too. I know interest rates are holding a lot of sellers back because they have such a low rate. But if they bought in like 2020 to now, they have something like $150,000 of equity just with appreciation on average. So that's a good chunk of money that maybe they're willing to have a higher payment to get out of their house that maybe they feel stuck in because they do have so much equity. So those might be some interesting conversations to have with people that have had their house for 4 or so years.
Yeah. Especially because we all know that people do need change and things come up that cause that to have to happen. So, and again, this is now for Utah. You can see with the rates and with prices where kind of those median sales price payments have been with 20% down. Home median price comparison. This is showing Utah versus the United States. And this is kind of where you got your stats from earlier to show with the amount of cells that we were still actually about the same for even the difference of number of being sold per agent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to sit here on this slide for a second. So how do you interpret this slide, Cameron?
Well, this is one of my favorites to show those buyers that are like, oh, I'm going to wait for home prices to come down, because it's like, okay, let's look back into the 50s even, and you tell me how many times prices have ever gone down. And it's like 59 barely went down, 91, 2.15%. But what we remember and why everyone is thinking, oh, I'll wait for home prices to come down is there in 08, 09, where it went down so much. But basically, it doesn't go below zero. We don't go backwards very often. And that makes sense. If you can't move to your next house, you typically don't sell, you wait. You have to live somewhere. So waiting is the default for people. Home prices are sticky up. They usually don't come down. And so for someone to say, oh, I'll wait till home prices go down, it's like statistically that's not going to happen.
Right.
We might go flat, we might be zero, but you usually don't go backwards. And even if we do, historically, it's very low when we go backwards.
Yeah. And majority of the ones that we did get low to the 0% or right below, you can see it did go back up, and it kind of then had to decide where it was at for a little bit with a little bit of fluctuation. But the overarching is back in an upward trajectory.
Yeah, besides way back in the 60s when we went to the negative, it's been a jump up every single time. I mean, in the 90s, it was a little more gradual, but it was a long-term up every single year. So now in 2023, we hit that negative just barely, and then you see it start to climb again. This this chart shows me that historically it'll probably climb a whole bunch again.
Yeah.
Well, and the challenge that we had in 05 is we overbuilt and the credit availability was, when I bought in 05, it was easier for me to buy my townhouse than a car. And that's not been the case for the past decade.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And one of the slides that we'll pull up in a little bit shows how much more difficult it is to get a loan and how they've been making it actually more and more difficult. So that part is definitely not a factor in where we're at right now. Okay, this one right here, you can see it's only shows over the last 30, 40 years, we've had a 4.44 appreciation for US, right? You can see the times of more recent, but it's showing the same stats in just a different way. And only the recent one, which is hard because that's why we like this one. It shows a longer time picture of where things are at. So for Utah, for example, right, you can kind of see this is only since 2004, the home appreciation that we've kind of been having. So our 20-year average has been a 6.53. Okay, US inventory annually. I do want to kind of go into that one. So this one right here, this year it's looking like we're at 3.6. Cameron, since a balanced market's right around a 6 months, what would you say that this is showing us for the past little bit of where we're at?
So obviously this is putting us in a seller's market. The difference is from 2021 to now, we are a lot higher. So I think buyers feel like it's a little bit closer to a buyer's market. And even when we get to the Utah one, we'll see a bigger contrast of that. So buyers feel like they can ask a little more of sellers, even though we still are in a seller's market.
Yeah. Because if you look also, the last time that we were right around this point was 2019, which a lot of people would have been very happy with how the market felt. And it probably feels similar if it wasn't for the most recent thing in people's minds. US inventory. Again, this shows the month over month. US pending homes. We've gone down by 6.3%, which is the reason why we're getting a higher inventory of how much is on there. All right, this one right here. So new single family housing units completed. It goes back to the building side that we talked about with the 14 years that we were chatting about. This one has 16 years below the 54 year average. What would you say that this means to you, and talking more about the building side?
Yeah, we're short inventory. And I think it looked like we were getting back to where we needed to be, but then builders' confidence fell with interest rates rising. So they started to build a little less. Maybe people bought a little less because they couldn't, and we had a little drop there. But we're holding steady.
For sure. So US new single housing says the same thing, just month over month. The great part in my mind is you can see that the builder's confidence has gone up on this one, because most of the 24 red lines are bigger than the 23. So they have started picking that back up. And even conversation that I had yesterday with another builder agent, they're seeing and still feeling pretty confident with how things are going. And just that direction of how many cells and people are saying, hey, great, we still want to have a new house. Okay, increase in unit housing units versus increase in Utah households. This one I want to dwell on. Cameron, what explain this chart.
Yeah, so basically, yellow being increase in housing units and purple being increase in households, the difference there gets added on to the shortage, right? So if we don't build enough and we have more people coming in, it gets up. So every time the purple is bigger than the yellow, you'll notice that the red line goes up and we have a bigger shortage. And so we hit a peak there in 2017 where we felt it like we did not have enough houses and things were moving very quickly. Demand was still strong, and so I think that caused a lot of the appreciation and things that we had. And then we were kind of normaling out for a little while, but then we have more households than we do housing units coming on. So our shortage is getting bigger and bigger over time. People love Utah. They're moving in. We have a lot of households.
For sure. So Gordon, just because I know you love stats, where do you feel like a happy spot would be with that red line to make it so that we're still increasing at the right spot, but we have enough households? Would you really think it's 0, or what do you think?
Well, obviously, we would want that red line to be below the purple, but realistically, I don't think we're building enough. And along the Wasatch front, we're running out of room to build. We're probably within 5 years, once Draper is built out, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, I mean, I'm already seeing it even in the Draper area where they're scraping to build multiple units in place of the one home.
Yeah. So this is going to be most likely because of how Utah is shaped, and we're such along the I-15, we're going to have it where that continues to get farther and farther in both directions.
Yeah.
So, okay. And that goes into this right here. So you have, this right here has new units needed. And it's fascinating to see because, of course, even just what we chatted about, Salt Lake and Utah County, for example, are the two that are running out of the most space and still need the most amount of units. Followed up pretty quickly by Washington and Davis County, who are still needing quite a few units to be built for the supply and people moving here. And honestly, all of Utah, except for one place on this map, is still needing more houses.
I was stunned the last time I went down to St. George at the amount of building in just a year.
Yeah.
In just a year's time, I couldn't believe how much had been completed.
Yep. And it's crazy to see how it's happening, you know, in a lot of areas here, in not only in St. George, but St. George is very much not a small town feel as much as it was. So. All right, US showing index, a higher number means an average home receives more buyer visits in a given month. All index values are scales relative to initial index at 100 for January 2014. So Cameron, I know we were diving into this one and you were explaining it really well yesterday while we were looking at it. What does this show you?
Well, you'll notice that there's obviously a cycle and it makes sense. We show fewer homes in like December, and that trickles into having fewer closings in January, February usually. But you'll notice that we are higher right now than the same time last year. And so we are having more showings. Even look back to 2022, we're right in line or above that. So there are still a lot of people out showing and ready to buy, but we're moving into a slower time. So it's like right now we have just the serious buyers out looking, but we need to get those people out looking to have the January, February, start the year off right.
Yeah. So Utah annual months of inventory. So this is again back to the other one. We're right now still pretty closely pacing with US as in general. You can see that we went up. We, of course, in 21 did have it even crazier where we got down to 0.9, where through the US it wasn't quite that low. But you can very much see the trend of where we're at, and Utah probably very much feels like it did in 2016. Kind of the market that we're feeling and where things were at on the sales for that. this goes over the month over month. You can see that it is has been going up on that aspect. So we are having more inventory than currently people are buying. New listings. This right here shows 46,000 new listings so far in 2024. And that's the year to date of where we're at. So we'll have to see kind of how that ends over the next little bit. But I know I've seen just from the stats of looking at each market center, we have as market centers been overall getting more and more listings as well. So same thing on a month. All right. Percent of new residential listings sold. Okay. Cameron, what does this tell the consumer of where we're at today?
If you list a home on average, three of four will sell. 75% actually end up selling. Which if you think back to Gary's economic model, he says, if you meet with someone, there's a 75% chance that they'll sign with you. If they sign with you, there's a 75% chance that they'll close. We are right in line with that in terms of the listing agreement signed to closing, right at that 75. We were as high as 90. This goes back to 2011 down at 50%. I mean, flip a coin if you sell a house in 2011. I still remember this from back in the day where Matt Green would do these, and he had like a 09, 2010 kind of a thing, and it was 30% of listings sold. And so 1 in 3 sold. So now 3 and 4 is not too bad, but there are still homes that are not selling. So that leaves room for some expireds. There's probably a lot of people that think it might be easy to sell that are going FSBO that you might be able to reach out with. But if you list 4 and sell 3, you are average.
Yeah. So go out and get your unfair share from the ones that, don't, and make things happen. This shows the month over month for the same one. So Utah inventory of homes for sale. So you can see last year we had, and this is in thousands, we had 121. And now year to date, we are at 100 where we were at 92 as of last year. So again, the way that we're pacing and kind of going is we should end up having more homes for sale this year than we did last year. And if we plug it into the math then of how many actually sold of 75%, kind of where and what does that put us at? For the month, pending sales. Okay, so in Utah, last year we had 38,000 go, right? And now we're at 32 out of above 30 is where the year to date was of last year. So we're still trending on having more go under contract, even though we're having more coming on to the market, which is a good sign that it's not going the other way for one of these.
Yeah, looking at all these, Taylor, it almost seems like the future is brighter. 2 years ago, it was like, oh, everything's going backwards. Last year, we're still going backwards. And now we're having all of these upturns. So it looks like things might get easier. I don't know. Did I just jinx us?
Knock on wood somewhere, right? All right. Okay. So this shows it. So it's monthly, kind of where that's at. US average days on market, the year to date's at 29. And this is for the US. You can see it has gone up as well since last year. Utah's, we're up to 54. So we are very much right now moving slower on the getting under contract than as a whole for the US. Our average, though, over 13 years is 54.5. So the fact is, we are right now at average.
And I feel like I'm not seeing very many average houses out there. Like, as I'm seeing things go under contract, I don't feel like it's 54 days. I feel like it's like 10 or 110.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe others are seeing those average ones, but I feel like it's either fast or really slow.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's probably pricing. people hoping for a little bit more or being unreasonable before they make some changes. I like to have a game plan that every 3 weeks we talk and adjust price. If you're not doing that, it's very easy to get over this average of 54 because you'll look up 2 months later and think, oh shoot, we need a price adjustment. And then people will wonder, why have you been on the market for so long?
Yep. Especially knowing that the average is 54. If you get past that point, then there's definitely different conversations to be had. So Utah days on market by month, you can see again, overall, the trend is that the red lines are bigger than the blue lines. So, okay, one of our favorite topics as of the past, year and a half, 2 years, mortgage rates. So if you look, I like this one because, of course, you always jump back to see when Gary Keller's story, and he says, when I was starting in the industry, I had 16, or whatever interest when he bought his first house, and you can see it right there of when the rates were at a 16-17% interest rate. So the historical average is really interesting, being at 7.74 if you look all the way back to the 72. If you look, though, over since the 90s, then we're at 5.98. What are your thoughts on not only where are we going with this, Cameron, but what this is currently telling us?
Well, I mean, we're high. This is our challenge. This is the affordability challenge that we're having just in a graph right there. But it looks like the Fed is talking, and we'll go over some things that looks like rates should be on their way down, but you never know.
True. I know even at, wasn't it Mega Camp that he was talking about, they were like, it could really go into 3 directions, right?
Mhm.
Depending on kind of what happens. So we'll have to see what happens next. Crazy part is we're right around the average over the last, 24 or 34 years.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates annually, showing that kind of where we're at. Monthly mortgage rates, 30-year fixed. You can see very much, how it's kind of been adjusting. We are not at the high point that we were at the 7.62. So we can all kind of be happy with that. Weekly interest rates. So over the past, quarter, kind of what has happened. And you can see that overall, we have been going down for this quarter. All right, this slide has changed slightly, and I love it. What this right here shows 76% of mortgages have a rate that's less than 5%, 5% or less. What you mentioned something, Cameron. What was the thing that you mentioned on this that you thought was fascinating from the change from even family reunion time?
Yeah, well, thinking back, like what was that 6 months ago? There was a very small sliver in that 6+%, and now that's grown to 14%. The chunk that was the 3% or less, that used to be way bigger, and now that's getting smaller. It seems like people are they're almost okay. Like this is the new normal as we get rates in the 6+%, and we can do that. And so if you can get someone a 5 to 6% rate, they're going to love you, even though it looks like they're okay getting 6% rates. There's reasons to do it right now.
Yeah. And the reasons are more and more outweighing the, pretty percentage that a lot of people were cherishing.
Yep.
So mortgage-backed securities, held outright by the Federal Reserve started purchasing on 2009.
Yeah, so that's one of the ways that the Fed actually controls it. It's one of their levers that they have, right? Besides just setting the rate that you see there on purple, which is how banks borrow money from each other, but the yellow line is when they want mortgage rates to go down, they start buying more of these things. And you'll see right there, pandemic, they started to buy a whole bunch, rates went way down. And then they started to sell everything off, meaning they're taking money out of the financial system and making it harder to get loans. And that's just creeping down, which means rates went up.
Yep. And that's where we'll see kind of over the next little bit what they're still doing as inflation has kind of gotten a little bit better, right?
Yep.
That comes up soon as well. Okay, annual MBA purchase index includes all mortgage applications for the purchase of a single family home. It covers the entire market, both conventional and government loans, and all products. So this one's really interesting. If you're looking at it, this is showing how many people have opened up a application to get approved. Doesn't mean that everyone got approved, but you can see that for the past few years, it has been going down. And as of the moment, year to date, we're at 142.9. What do you think that shows where we're at on pace for what this is going to end up like?
This just sounds lower than some of these other numbers that we've been looking at, but I wonder if people are they're better prepared before they pull this mortgage application. That would be interesting to see how many people got approved for a mortgage application back in even like 2020, where everyone was trying. 06, everyone got approved because that's just how you did loans back then. But it'd be interesting to see how this impacts everything, because it's not people actually getting the loans. It's just how many people applied. And I feel like a lot of people think they can't get a loan, so the only ones applying are people that can get loans.
Yeah. And Gordon, tell me if you're wrong. Or tell me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking if I'm looking at the year, this is year to date is 142.9. There's a good chance this year, if we continue at the pace we're going, that we end up having more applications pulled than 23, correct?
Well, if the interest rates continue going down, yeah, we're going to be getting a lot more mortgage loan applications. We saw a spike last month when it dropped to 6.18, and now it's kind of slowing down again because we saw that, especially for refinances. We had a big refinance month last month, but now it's kind of stalled. And the Fed is restricting the money, that and it's showing here.
Yeah.
But the loans are good. You go back to 2004, where it's at our top, 2005, and they were just giving out the loans, and that's what created a lot of our problems during that period of time. And that's why in the next couple of slides, you're going to see, I don't see a foreclosure problem coming because of the restrictiveness and, the good loans.
Yeah. Okay. And this right here shows similar of the same. You kind of see kind of where it's been month over month. We did have that spike. You can see it got a little bit higher right at the beginning of the year, even when rates kind of were going down from the 7s. A lot of people got excited right around that time and kind of going from there. Mortgage credit availability index by year. So this right here, you can kind of use different stats. The mortgage credit availability, again, month over month. Oh, refinance is this next one. So the U.S. Mortgage Refinance Index covers all mortgage applications to refinance an existing mortgage. It is best overall gauge of mortgage refinance activities. Ever since rates started going up, it went down, of course, drastically, right? People less and less took out money for buying their houses and kind of going from, or not buying their houses, but refinancing, where we had a lot when it was in 2020 and 2021. Same thing, historical foreclosure activity and rates.
You go back to that one, you can see that spike.
Yeah.
Huge spike of refinances.
Right.
Well, that just shows us there's the demand. Like,
Yep.
as soon as rates get to certain levels, whatever that be, like 6.18, people were probably hearing 6% or right below there, and then they jumped on it.
Mm-hmm. So Cameron, on this one right here, what does this tell you on about foreclosures?
That they are almost non-existent. You're not going to see a whole lot of them. Short sales and foreclosures are really down. And I think a lot of that is because people have so much equity. If you bought, like we talked about, even 4 years ago, you're probably $150,000 equity. So most people can sell when they're in a hard spot.
Mhm. Okay, we're gonna sit on this one for a little bit. Affordability. So back in the 80s is when you had half of your income was used on paying for your house, right? That's when we were in the 16, 17%. You can see that for the past, since 2020, we've been in the 20% as an average. And right now, people are definitely feeling it more because we're at 35. This right here is very determined, of course, not only on the prices of it can continue to increase. At the same time, interest rates were the big cause of the change over the past couple of years.
Yeah, the other thing that could help this is wages. If you start to make more money, then this goes down without refinancing or changing your house price or anything.
Yep.
So if people start making money, this goes down, or if home prices go down, or interest rates.
Yeah, which will all affect this one even more. But this right here, with us talking a while back about the new Utah, right? We are now labeled as a little bit less of an affordable state, which changed kind of over the past years than being like the place to be for affordability. Okay, US affordability, yearly housing affordability index higher than the HAI ratio indicates relatively more affordability. A ratio of 100 indicates the median family income is just significant to purchase the median priced home. So 97% of people can afford the median price in the US. Am I reading that right, Cameron?
Sort of. It's an index, so not 97%, but
Ah,
relative 97.
all
Yeah, so
right.
almost everyone, almost every median family. Maybe it is 97, who knows?
I don't know. That's what I want. Well, and that's of course of a median priced house as well, right?
Yep.
With the median price income. So, U.S. affordability, you can see over the past little bit, it has been going down as a whole. Did spike up this last in August because of interest rates and different things like that. Utah. So this is where I was just chatting about. And I'm not going to say that's 80% since you just told me that I was wrong there, but 80, right? What does that mean to you, Cameron?
Well, so the median family can't purchase the median home. So either if they want to buy, they have to buy less than the median home, or they need to look at some ways to increase their income. I'm imagining that worked into this is probably debt somehow. So that would be the other factor, is if they can not have as much debt, like less credit card, less nice cars, that might help them be able to afford something a little bit better.
And this shows that over the past little bit as well. The nice part is you can see the last quarter that has actually been increasing. So we'll see kind of overall where we end with all the different factors that are being put into that. Okay, investment properties. So this next section is all about the investment properties, diving into some of these numbers for you to understand and help your investors. Who owns all the single family rentals? This one's fascinating, of course, because you have 80% of people of the single family rentals are still owned by mom and pop investors. And that's people that own between 1 and 9 single family homes. And then you can see how it changes of groups owning different amounts from there. Average rent in Utah has still been increasing. This one's an interesting one because it goes through and has some different areas. But you can see, 1570 is that what it's showing is the average.
Yeah, that was 22. I still don't have the 23 numbers yet.
Oh. Yep.
They've been a little bit slow releasing some of this.
Okay. Yep, these still show 2022, so I'm gonna go through a lot of these quicker this round, but you'll have these slides. Okay, Utah 2025 fair market rent set by HUD. Utah housing profile, so you can see, anyone who's in Utah housing, where they're fitting in that.
And Taylor, if you go back 2 slides,
This one,
that
Salt Lake.
that one is current. So you can see our rents are actually outpacing what assistance is providing.
Yeah. On every single one, just except for 2-bedroom averages. Oh no, that one too. All of them. Interesting. Okay, median asking rent for all bedrooms. You can see it's just kind of been that slow uprise in the US. US is having year-over-year changes for rolling 3, asking for all rent.
And you can see what happened during that 21 timeframe where we just, it was crazy the amount of, when I was having turnovers in my own personal ones, what I was able to ask.
It's true. And it was one of those things where a lot of people into 23 and 24 were still hoping for those. So vacancy definitely was increased a little bit to get people to
This
see.
kind of got some people, because they weren't looking at it past 22, it got some people buying that got them in a little bit of a trouble because they were expecting that to continue, and it didn't.
It didn't. Yep. Average rent growth. Then for 1 to 2 bedrooms, you can see the trend line, just how it works. It's one of the reasons I know, Cameron, me and you were chatting about at what point in time does it make sense to be buying a place and kind of being like, okay, in 2 years, this happens, or, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I don't like that. The whole book says you should cash flow $1 after you save for vacancy and repairs and everything like that. So buying with knowing that in the future rent will go up, it scares me, but I could see someone wanting to do it for some of the other benefits, like the tax, the debt reduction, the appreciation. And so maybe that's how you have to make rentals work in Utah.
Yeah. It's one of those parts of looking at the whole picture and seeing, okay, does it make sense for that person, right? US new unit completed. Goes through and shows that. Rental vacancy rates. So this right here is for, you can see that Utah is still a lower percent than the United States. US this last year in 23 was 6.5, and we were at 5.3.
Yeah, for years and years when I ran my analysis, just like Johnny, I would put 8%. He probably taught me that. That's basically a month every year. And then for a while we were doing 4%, which was 2 weeks every year. And now I'm thinking we might need to do 5% as we analyze properties.
Yeah.
Probably a safe number.
Yep, something in that gap process.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or you could always just even know, and great, the average, the balanced was 7. Like, do you put in 7 to be very conservative?
Yeah.
Vacancy rents by county. So according to this, you can see kind of where some of those vacancy rates and kind of going from there of what makes sense for where you're at.
Davis County, what's wrong with you?
Cash, Davis, Salt. Okay, these ones right here are the annual average operating expenses per county. So you can see that, as of the Q2 of this year, it goes through and says how much would you have had to expend on that unit, on average, and you can see kind of where that is and from those numbers. Okay. All right, US economy. This goes into some more of the different stats of where things are at. So for example, GDP, annual year-over-year change. Okay, US, the real GDP, right? What's the difference between these two?
One's yearly, one's quarterly.
So it's
Still don't have
interesting.
Q3 yet.
Yep. US unemployment history. We are at a pretty low point right now, right? It spiked up in 2020 for some weird reason and then shot back the other direction. No, we all know what happened in 2020. You can kind of see though, kind of where we're at, and the fact is there's still very much, not very much unemployment. Gordon, what was the average that I feel like the government wants us to be at? I know that Gary Keller kind of always mentions that.
I think around the 5% range is considered normal.
Yeah, there's always a group of people that just don't have jobs for whatever reason. They just got laid off and they're waiting to get their new one, or they moved or whatever. So they they say it's normal.
Yeah, and part of what's skewing these numbers is we've got so many people leaving the market. We've got, in a couple slides, you'll see how many boomers are leaving the market. And there's not enough people to replace them in the trades.
Yep. And that's kind of where this goes through and showing by annual where it's at and kind of where things are looking. It is interesting to see that the year to date, it is looking like we're going to be ending up potentially over what it was last year. So more more job openings. That was not the one that I went to. Oops, there it was. That's the one I was showing, right? And then that's also showing job openings. We're getting more and more of them as well with how it's ending. US Census region job openings and quits in August.
And this one is a real-time slide. So you can see people are not job hopping. And this has been a trend over this last year where it was almost flipped over a year ago.
Super interesting that people were looking for a new opportunity where now they're holding fast.
Yep.
Real unemployment rate, kind of going over that.
Yeah, I like this one actually better, Taylor, because there's some people that have jobs that just aren't working enough or can't keep that job enough to discourage workers, all of those people. And that you'll notice that that's a little bit higher right now. People want to work more, and that's kind of on the rise.
Yeah, which is good because we need people working. The real unemployment rate for the same thing, you can kind of see where that has been at for the same. Annual labor force participation rate is the number of all employed and unemployed workers divided against the civilian population. Utah's still on the slight higher part of participating.
We're a lot younger.
Yep.
That's why.
Same thing. US full-time workforce by generation. Okay, anything to be said about this slide? What would you go into this one, Cameron?
If you went to Mega Camp, they actually had a speaker, Jason, I can't remember his last name, but he basically wrote a book on this, on how every generation is kind of different. We have different standards, morality, things like that. And we all work different. For example, baby boomers, they're like time on task. That's how they judge how well they're doing. And now you'll see baby boomers are getting out of the market. So you're hearing the less of like, you just got to put in the hours. And you now have the Gen Z who's like grew up on social media, Chat GPT, like they're in with all of that. So they're no longer like hours on the task. They're like, how can I get it done? And so it's very interesting, like the whole culture of how we work, I think will start shifting as more and more of these baby boomers get out of the workforce and the Gen Z takes over for them.
Mm-hmm. not interesting one, nothing that anything from this one you wanted to dive into?
I follow someone that says you should go buy businesses because 11,000 people are retiring every day. A lot of those people will own businesses, so might
Well,
be an
and
interesting
the
time to
younger
go buy.
generation, if they really want to start making some bank, get into the trades.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if I've had my property manager split out labor and parts, and the amount in labor has just gone up like crazy, especially for like your water heater, whatever.
Mhm.
It's a good
Water
time to
heater.
get into the trades.
Yep. The heater's not the big cost. It's the person to put it in.
Yep. And that was not the way a while ago.
Real wages year over year change. So this year we've gone up by 0.8. Is that no? That was last year, huh?
That's 23, yeah.
23 is 0.8%. So we'll have to see kind of how things have been affected this year as well. United States real average hourly earnings month over month.
Going up.
Weekly
making more money.
payroll wages index for all employees still going up. Definitions, not going to go into those right now. Inflation. This is an interesting one. Cameron, I know because this is, of course, a huge topic. What would you, with using this chart, what would you explain to a client?
Gosh, to put it to a client, I don't know. We're getting closer to where the Fed wants us to be at that 2%. However, you'll notice that we have not gone backwards. So when things went up 9.1% and made it 9.1% more expensive, we did not go down. Even though this chart has gone down, prices have not come down. We'll see in a minute in some instances that they actually did. But when you go to the store and things feel more expensive, I mean, you look at over like the past year, there are 2 or 3, you start to combine some of these percentages and it gets big. And I've seen numbers as high as it's 25% more expensive to go to the grocery store even. And so even though we're getting closer to this target rate, it's going to be a while before it feels normal because a couple years ago it was a lot cheaper to buy things. So
For sure. And that is, we'll see, we have a really good slide on that in a second as well. This one shows again the inflation year over year where it's kind of being projected at. So it looks like in this essence, like you said, the government's getting kind of what they want to bring that back down to a better spot. This is the one that you're just chatting about, where with what prices are, and it's different things, right? So hospitality has gone up drastically. And then you have other things like TVs that have, dropped drastically.
yeah, some things holding steady, like clothes, about the same price.
Yep. Here's the ones with falling prices. So you can see smartphones, cars, those different ones are now reducing how much they're worth. And then you have the opposite, where so even though your car went down in value, right, and down in costs, the motor vehicle insurance went up. That's kind of those different ones with the inflation aspect. Okay, actuals. So this right here is in September of 2024, a customer price index, selected categories for 12 months of change. So you can see that median home prices have gone up. Real rent growth has gone down a hair. Real median home payment has gone down over the past 12 months. And then interest rates have gone down as well.
And I try and put these actuals in just because the Fed is so far behind. If you look at what they're reporting on rent growth and owner's equivalent of rent, they're so far behind in their reporting. That's kind of why the numbers are a little bit skewed and people aren't seeing you know, their prices reduced at the grocery store.
Flexible and sticky CPI. Producer price index. So this is the demand over the last 12 months. Real personal, right? Market-based personal consumption.
And this is the one that I really wish we could have gotten before this. This is the one that the Fed really looks at to see if they're making progress. So it's going to be interesting to see when Q3 actually comes out.
Okay, because then they'll look at this and say, okay, is it 2.2? And then they'll be happy, right?
Yeah, and let's see, you know, if they're going to continue with rate cuts when some of these more important slides come out at the end of the month.
Average revolving consumer debt has gone up. So still kind of getting at where people are having more and more debt as a whole. Federal debt keeps on going up.
It's projected to keep going up, either president winning, and they both have plans to spend more.
Yeah.
That's not going down.
Yep. Annual personal savings. So this one right here is an interesting one because it looks like we're as a whole going up in savings as well for this year.
Which is crazy to me because prices of everything have gotten more expensive and stayed expensive. Wages have gone up a little bit, but not a lot, but people are saving more money. So they are cutting out something to put that into savings, which is good. Hopefully they'll pay down their debts with some of that savings so they can qualify for more houses.
Yeah. Deposits. So all commercial banks have gone up. More people are putting more money in this in the bank system. Manufactured durable goods. So new orders have still been going up.
They're still buying things, so they're still making it. That's the good thing.
Yep.
So the economy hasn't grinded to a stop. It's still strong.
And at the same time, it's interesting to look at because new orders have gone down.
Yeah, we're contracting. The purchasing managers are buying less, and it's interesting to see the next slide where we're contracting, and it's contracting faster in some of the new orders for exports, etc.
Average advanced retail sales percentage change. US index and consumer sentiment average by year.
Yeah, so this is how people are feeling about the economy. And I mean, we're feeling better than we were the years before, but crazy to think that we're not feeling as good as the economy of like 2020 or 2021 when we were full-blown pandemic. We thought the economy was in better shape than now, but we are trending upwards. So
yeah, it's also interesting because if you go to our kind of thought process from like, you know, between 2016 and so on and so forth, it felt like it's so similar on our inventory, right? It's interesting how much higher it was because of how much longer ago the recession was.
And Utah just started tracking ours, and it's interesting to see how much higher we are because our economy is it is pretty different than other parts of the country. We're hopping.
Yeah. Do we have that one in here, Gordon?
Yeah, if you see the purple line.
Oh yeah, right there. Yep. It's true. We're higher in that as well. Okay, US index by month. You can see where people are feeling. Few months that we have been either the same or lower, but overall, Utah has been feeling better about where things are at. Misery index. Okay,
wait,
unemployment rate.
one slide.
What?
I just thought of something as I was looking at that. Because we have that last election cycle. I know a few people are worried about like, what if this president wins or that president wins or anything. Like, it looks like even from voting, like November of 2020, we went down a little bit, but then we went back up, and it had nothing to do with who was in office. So I don't think that this changes much about who wins presidency.
Mhm.
I think it's just overall the economy.
Yep. Okay, so this is, unemployment rate plus inflation rate, lower the number, the better. So in that way, we actually are in a better spot. And we have been getting in a better spot this year. Okay, the Utah economy. So this is specific on Utah. We're right now the seven most favorable annual employment growth. Second lowest poverty rate. I'm now trying to remember who was the first again, Cameron. We looked it up.
Maryland, is that what it was? Something random like that.
Yeah, it was. More Utahns work, so we're the second highest labor force in participation. We're still the youngest, and we're still the largest in household size. 17th lowest unemployment rate and second highest median household income. Okay, so jobs and industry change of non-farming employment. Very much track, it looks like overall what the US does. Utah yearly unemployment percentage. So we're still lower in unemployment than the US. Utah monthly unemployment percentage, similar. Health of Utah's industry.
There it is, Gordon. Just like you were saying, you want to get into construction now, the trades. That's the expanding industry.
Super interesting. Quarterly gross domestic product by state. Real GDP for Utah. This is in the billions. We've still gone up. Similar, but shows with the overlay. Utah personal income growth.
I think this is awesome to see our income is going up faster than the United States.
And consistently, like you look at that, and we're always increasing faster than the US.
It should help with some of that affordability problem.
Well, and our industries have changed so much over the years. So, I mean, you look at the tech corridor down here in the Draper Lehigh area, and those jobs are bringing in these numbers.
Yeah, more and more people are moving here for work, and it's paying more and more. Construction. Okay, this is a good one. So this is kind of back to what we were showing with that gap that was created by single family home starts. You can see that, of course, like we've talked about, that it dropped and kind of went through that process. Utah housing starts by month. Utah housing starts by year. You can see single family housing permits and then total building permit units. US price index of new single family houses under construction. US price index of new multifamily residential under construction. Builder confidence. This is a good one. We've chatted about this in a couple different slides and mentioning it. You can see overall that the past little bit still builders haven't felt as confident, even though they've the numbers are showing that they've been building a little bit more over the past this year than they were last. On a monthly scale. Okay, any of those that you guys want to, Gordon or Cameron want to say anything about?
Let's talk about debt.
Let's talk about debt. Okay, total debt. All right. Cameron, lead the way.
You'll notice really there's not a lot of big changes here. It looks like student loans have grown more than any other section. I mean, houses, the mortgage is going up, but that's really the interest rates that have caused a lot of that, and the home prices. But everything else seems to be pretty stable.
Mhm.
People with good credit, they're the ones buying the most. People with bad credit, they're almost non-existent, except for way back in the ninja loan days. No income, no credit, no job. What was that? Whatever.
The dog getting the loan. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yep. So
auto loan, or where credit scores are.
Just interesting to contrast that against the mortgages here, because you look at like the lower credit scores take up a big chunk of this. I imagine a lot of these high credit scores are also just buying cars in cash if they've done better, things like that. But nothing to worry about.
Yep.
Delinquent, we don't have very much out there. We're going down in terms of things that are delinquent, which is great.
Mm-hmm. And this is where it shows we just didn't have that many of the foreclosures, right? Or short sales.
Yep, it's that. I mean, people's credit are probably getting better because there's fewer people having problems with making payments. So credit should be on the rise because of this.
Yep.
Delinquency by type, you'll notice the student loans dropped off when they told you didn't have to pay them for a while. Imagine they'll start coming back here shortly. Same with the serious delinquency. We do have a rise here on credit cards and other. I imagine those probably are like personal loans and things like that. Those are trending up really high, and it matches right up with the interest rates, because most of those are whatever the interest rate plus an additional prime plus whatever. So your credit card payments are now more expensive. So more people are getting delinquent with those.
Well, and if you look at the people that bought, in the 3% range, those people are not going to let go of their homes. They're going to let go of their cars.
Yep.
Whereas before it was just the opposite when we had the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. Like, they did keep their cars, but they sold everything else.
Yeah.
In foreclosures and bankruptcies, we're way down with a lot of those. We're kind of ticking up here as times go on. I think, again, that's some of these interest rates that are going up and changing with some of those things. Hard to afford some of the stuff with inflation going up. So kind of changing there.
Still, in comparison, though, when you look, it's just such a drastic change.
Mm-hmm.
Third-party collections.
Yep. Collections are down, but the amount that they're collecting is up over the last year, or the amount they're collecting is about the same for the last year, but up overall.
Okay. And that is it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gordon, for putting all of this together. This wouldn't happen if you weren't in charge of all of this. So thanks for nerding out for us.
We love that you love the stats.
I do.
Gordon for president.
Yeah.
I think not.
Okay, appreciate everyone for jumping on. Use this information to help inform your clients and continue to be a better agent.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.